hear me? No. Can you hear me? No. Please raise your hand. All right. I'm very happy to speak at this conference. First off, I know from the everyone who has some quite technical guests, some interesting guests as well. I think I'd like to know, first of all, that you have speakers from the local IBM think about that four US institutions, one Cambridge, as you United Kingdom. So that's five UK, USA, Anglo-Saxon organizations. And then me, as a counterpoint, a dissonant voice organization, I think that's all. Of course, the United States, and the internet is its own ground. But to have those four representatives, or three representatives of major US corporations, we know from the Snowden publications have been working on that with the National Security Agency. There's one spot, the Media Lab, which has done great work, but also central to the United States. That Latin America is not itself understanding its own strengths. When we take the figures that we are still, it seems, reliant on the very large US consulting companies, which I would accept sometimes it would work, but they are not listed as they intend to expand as much throughout America and the rest of the world, and try both the street. But who knows? Maybe in the conference we can have inspire some people in Ecuador and in the region create bona fide competitors to these countries. So I must say, as Australia, we suffer a phenomenon in Australia, which historically is wearing off a bit the last few years of cultural cringe, which is being deferring too much to the United States and not believing in our own industry, our own inventions, and our own people until they leave the United States. And from what Ecuadorians tell me as well, the situation in Latin America. There's no need for this cultural cringe. A lot of great work going on in Ecuador, and this conference, to a degree, that of okay. So Wikileaks is an implementation of the ideal of using open data for justice. But that ideal goes back a very long way. Within Europe to the Julian project for the greatest people, life, and the period of science and tech in the 19th century, which is understanding law and strength and letting go of the understanding. Being passing laws where they will interpret ways we could not predict and ways very beneficial. So it's very from that we have published a 11 document, tens of millions of, it's hundreds of millions of database types, Most of our material is of high value. We're talking about material that not otherwise publicly accessible and it's not been published before, where it's active to destroy it, or to suppress it. So a lot of people here will be dealing with perhaps data that goes into the trillions. I can say that it is quite something to try and learn that sort of material in the face of intelligence agencies, prosecutions being detained before you chance problem too, which is really a problem that has to do with longevity of data in the face, not really of accidents and earthquakes, but of adversarial action. Now, we also have some other types of data which is secret information. Information that we really must keep secret at all times. Now, it's very hard to keep information secret. It reminds any of you again that the national security literally billions of data per day, sucks out billions of databases on government archives. But are we worried about the National Security Agency reading Wikileaks? No. That's designed to cover. And as much as you can track the data then the burden of security disappears because it is practically covered. That's a so that's let me make more smart news, which is material that we have published has gone on and does go on every single day to produce new stories around the world every single day, exposing various forms of injustice and corruption. Material that is not the stories that we have arranged, that we have found ourselves, or even that our partner media institutions have found, but rather that academic researchers have found, that programmers have found in their spare time, that teenagers have found, people on social media have found, that addresses some individual or company or corporation which is suddenly political. Additionally, there's been around 300 court cases where innocent people have been freed from prison as a result of material that's been published. Not that we saw that they were innocent of material and then we published. We published what we published because we thought it was of general contextual interest as to how, say, the US State Department behaves, or how a large organization like Sony behaves. But their lawyers and their friends who were trying to get them out of prison discovered this after we published it and used it in these court cases. A good example is the case of El Masri, a German citizen kidnapped by the CIA as he entered into Macedonia, rendition into a CIA black site, tortured over the course of 4 months. Eventually, they understood that it was a case of mistaken identity. It had a similar name to the terror suspect, but they didn't want to apologize for the complication. They wanted to pretend they didn't know it. So they dumped him on the streets of another country, Albania. Not even the city centre, near a police station or a railroad, rather than on a country road. Make people think that he was a madman wandering the streets claiming that he had been kidnapped by the CIA. Well, he was not able to achieve justice in the United States. The United States government there used something that they use with Wikileaks and which is state secrets privilege to declare a case or documents in a case a state secret. that thereby cannot be used in the courts. And the CIA claimed it had a defense in being sued, but it was a secret defense, classified defense. It couldn't be presented, therefore they had to go, okay, what happened in those states? Because our data went to the European Court of Human Rights and won. And the data we published was 5 to 6 times that judgment against the CIA. Another good example before the European Court of Human Rights this year is the case of the Kurdish TV station ROJ-TV. So Kurds are very big in the news at the moment because of what's going on in northern Syria. And Turkey, the Kurds are being oppressed by the Turks, by ISIS, fighting for a homeland between Turkey, Iraq, and Syria. Well, the most important part, actually, of keeping a culture and a language, in this case Kurdish, is to have a communication system, have a TV station. All the largest Kurdish language broadcasts are based in Denmark, beamed up to satellite, and then back down into Kurdistan. The Turks, together with Obama and the Prime Minister of Denmark, Rasmussen, structured a deal whereby Rasmussen would become the head of NATO in exchange for the complete destruction of ROJ-TV through corruption of the judicial system in Denmark, finding ways to tackle the case explicitly. Maybe they can go after in relation to taxes, maybe they can go after in relation to concepts, maybe they can claim that it inspired terrorism. Well, some of those claims have been tried before and it's found to be innocent today in courts. But this time around, with the political imperative of making the Danish Prime Minister the head of NATO, the deal was done between the intelligence agencies and the Danish prosecutors, and a whole language group, effectively Kurdish, and the whole TV station was annihilated. So the Prime Minister could get a fun job in NATO and the Turks was marginalised. So that's an extremely important example of information we had published just to add to the general context and political understanding of how the United States operates, so that was then taken and used to obtain precedence in other areas. Now, in relation to governments and the big data that they choose to release, well, there's a lot of open washing that's been going on. That is concealing bad government behavior or bad corporate behavior through engaging in so-called open projects. So drowning out the signal, a lot of noise, flooding out information about government that is not important information, bringing information that is important. Similarly, there's been a lot of open washing as a big link to transparency. There's no genuine transparency, but to say that the government is doing something along these lines. And then there's an empirical aspect to it, emanating principally from the United States, a little bit also from the UK, where consultancies paid, NGOs and consultancies paid for by the United States government or by the major American foundations have set up structures to push their model of government onto Latin American countries, claiming that they would assist with opening up various forms of data. Now, from the US point of view, what's mostly going on here is trying to open up the data of Latin American governments so that US corporations can better see what the investment environment is like, so they can also in some respects re-privatize the commons. Take data and put it out into the public, with the commons to make it part of our shared intellectual wealth, but organizations like Google are involved in trying to gobble up as much of the commons as possible. They can't deny it to take it for themselves and then supplement it with information that no one else has. Thus, creating a value of combining commons information and private information which exceeds the value of commons information alone, meaning that purely open organizations are not market competitive compared to organizations like Google, which has common information and science. That's a serious problem that maybe we can talk about as this conference. I can't hear anything that people were saying. I did see briefly some clapping. Okay. Are there some questions?
Por favor, las personas que tengan preguntas, las vamos a hacer en español. Nuestro traductor le va a pasar las preguntas. Mr. Assange? Can you hear me? Yes. From your
question has been asked, I can't hear it. It's quite funny that we're at a big data conference, but we don't even have a little bit of data put in here.
From your perspective, how do you think we can apply big data here in Ecuador?
I can't hear the translator, and it's even difficult to hear the original Spanish. What I suggest, because of the problem with the audio coming back from UC, I suggest that someone can retype the question because we can see the original communication. Wonderful. So the question is, from my point of view, how can Ecuadorians take that's other organizations will apply big data instruments? But there's a difficulty, a real difficulty, which is if you make data public, straight away, so the one very important verb, which is which is an almost impossible task. So under that basis, then we need to look at, do the EU has the capacity to use that information? Is it the Ecuadorian people? Do they have the capacity to understand? Perhaps, sometimes information can be presented in such a way. It can be that type of Ecuadorian businesses and actually perhaps. If you're talking about a lot of data that is complex, then it's possible that only international players like IBM or Microsoft or the National Security Agency or Google have a real capacity to make use of it. So then there's a question of who are you empowering by releasing that information? You're empowering the citizens of Ecuador, organizations within Ecuador, organizations within the region, organizations, corporate organizations in the United States and Europe, government organizations in the United States and maybe the UK. Now, the most powerful electronic government organizations in the United States, like National Security, we can assume that if Ecuador is collecting a database, a large database on something, then almost certainly it is going to be sold. It is going to be sucked out anyway. So the question then arises, should, knowing that if information is collected in volume, it will be sold. The question arises, should it be collected at all? Should it be centralized at all? If it has to be kept, the answer is, with rare exceptions, probably not. Probably shouldn't collect it if you can't make it public because it will be sold. If you're going to keep it in a centralized form. Now, on the type of information that one should invest in publicly, well, there's information that can help small businesses better manage themselves, see what the government is doing, justice getting to it. Then there's everything individuals. And then there's information that can make a living. That's really very interesting. And I give you two example cases we had. One was the Kingdom of Brunei. So we got hold of satellite information, high-resolution map of Brunei with the features identified and who owns them. And this caused outrage in Brunei because it became clear that members of the Brunei elite had bought up the waterfront, or rather not even bought, corruptly obtained whole beaches. And in fact, rather a large portion of the entire land of Brunei was held by the Brunei elite. Whole areas of the country made completely private. Now, there's a database registered here in the UK. In the UK, in a kind of technical sense, one of the more open data governments that has a policy for trying to do that. You can see that different technical people working with the UK government trying to realize that. So what sort of things are not made open that would have significant political consequences? Well, an example of that is who owns the land in the UK. Now, why there's governmental service that you can go to and say, who owns this piece of land? And you pay them a fee and you will be told. I use that service to understand who owns all the land around the embassy and above and below, because the UK intelligence services have surveillance teams and own stations the buildings around the embassy. Now, one of them, for example, is owned by Harrods, a large department store here, in turn owned by the sovereign fund of the department. So the question of political importance is Who owns the most land? Who is the biggest landholder in the United States? How much of the land is owned by the top 10 landholders, the top 50 landholders, the top 1% of landholders? That's an equation that could produce significant political change and pressure comes to these things like land taxes or split up the land all being held by one person, or to reduce the amount of land being held in offshore trusts. So that's I think a very important question for departments to answer. In releasing certain kinds of information, they empower different groups to move in particular directions. Some ways in which you can't fix good and bad. Some ways in which you possibly can do. Okay, so the next question is on the Panama Papers. I'm glad someone brought that up. Panama Papers, to my mind, is an example of how not to do it. Not that it's a complete failure. It's probably better that it's not having happened at all. Of course, we must congratulate the source, whoever they were, whether it was or intelligence agency. That got this information to journalists, Obermeyer at Deutsche Zeitung, SEC, which is a publication that we work with in Berlin. But the good story ends there. The Panama Papers presently is one of the smallest leaks in history because it's not a leak unless you publish it. And they haven't published it. They've cherry-picked around 166 documents. So you see them talking about the figures of 11 million. That's false. I've over-counted. It's actually about 5.4 million because they count attachments and someone email and another they count database where it's all the documents. So, but still a big leap, 5.4 million. But a leak that the world has not seen. Only 166 documents. So this is not open data at all, this is closed data. That may change. We may change that. It all depends. For instance, this is what I'm going to do now. The cherry picking, while there are some good journalists involved, it's being run out of Washington, D.C. by an outfit called IC. International Federation of Investigative Journalists, ICFP. And ICFP is funded by Soros, Ford Foundation, Rockefeller Foundation, etc. Now, some foundation organizations can do some good work sometimes, but of course they're on the foundation money leash, which means they cannot publish this material. That is too controversial act. That is something that Wikileaks does, because suppose our need in international society is to be legally and politically structured and have a greater staff whereby we're willing to do that. Now, in Washington, D.C., funded by Rockefeller, is obviously not going to do that and hasn't done that, and in fact promises not to do that. And does so as part of a stated ideological attack on Wikileaks. What do I mean by that? Well, the director of the International Federation, so-called International Federation of Investigative Journalists, stated on the initial day of the launch, WikiLeaks stole journalism and we're taking it back. That they're not WikiLeaks. They are responsible. Well, of course, the question immediately becomes, we're responsible to who? Responsible to Washington, D.C., responsible to Rockefeller, responsible to all possible readers in the world. Who exactly 5.4 million. So the next question is about Aaron Schwartz. One question about his case. I knew Aaron, he was a personal friend of mine. He is a victim of the broader crackdown that occurred in 2010 and 2011 against Wikileaks. So Aaron was in the Boston area, and the US government perceived that the hotbed of Wikileaks support was in Boston and around MIT. And it's true, we have and had many supporters around the area. For example, a graduate student at MIT wrote our Afghan and Iraq warlocks forum. It's still one of the best database things that we've done. You can have a look at warlocks, Wikileaks.org, or war diary, it's a really quite an amazing history of those two wars, maps, but those ones. So the Massachusetts VA wanted a piece of the action. So when Aaron was busy trying to obtain academic papers, millions of academic papers, to publish them because the research was funded by states and universities, but the system kind of evolved with privatization with large scientific privateers like Reed Elsevier who restrict fruits of government investment into scientific research. So he was involved in a project to try and liberate that down to the MIT. And they I don't know what expansion was part of the digital practice. They tried something called the CFAA, the Fraud and Abuse Act, something that I also done. And started piling up charges like they do in the United States to try and crush the microbiome. President decades and decades in prison, and eventually sadly took his own life. And in part, I blame myself. It's a very important lesson to me and other people, which is I was worried that by speaking to Aaron, that I was drawing unhealthy attention to him, even if he had an ongoing responsibility. So I talk to him more because I don't want the US government to think you are Mr. Wikileaks in the United States, because they haven't got me there and they'll want to pressure on you. So I did that. What I thought was going to many people do that in legal conflicts. They distance themselves or other people connected their own. The result is that Aaron had no one that he could talk to. He was in a very similar situation. Of course, he had some but he didn't have someone who ideologically aligned and personally in the same situation. I should say on the Schwartz case that work by Aaron has now been taken up, and to a degree completed by Russian or Kazakhstani Russian graduate students, publishing out of Russia, which has created a really impressive search engine, which goes and mines out the various topics. People donate their usernames and passwords, and goes and mines out the scientific papers, and it has about 40 million now collected. Well, how can this be? How is it that Aaron Schwartz was monstered and crushed to the degree that he's no longer lived in the United States, simply was trying to educate the world in scientific papers? And this young woman has been able to go on to partly complete the ideological transition Well, the answer is geopolitical. He's in Russia. Aaron was in the United States. The United States is, amongst other things, a copyright superpower. If you look at trade agreements trying to foist on the world to create a new economic and legal bloc through TPP, TISA, something called TPP, TTIP, something called TISA, triangle of legal agreements that with 1.6 billion people inside, 2/3 of global people. The outside is China, Russia, most countries in the world, including Ecuador, fortunately. And the inside binding together the West and the two anti-Chinese states like Vietnam into economic and legal bloc. But one of the central elements of that bloc, and defining forces in that bloc, is copyright. Because the US is a copyright superpower. Russia is not a copyright superpower, so a graduate student in Russia is able to do it, while in the United States or American courts is not able to. This dividing up to privacy and transparency. Well, I mean, the title of this offense includes great transparency, but by itself, of course, transparency is a sort of dead word. It's an intermediary word. Transparency is a method, it is not a goal. And so, because of the depoliticization of the word transparency, where it's not obvious what the politics are in the word, just the method, of course, that is the word that is managed to flourish. Because different political actors, from people who genuinely want to achieve justice with information, or educated information, and those who want to listen to a consulting culture engage in open watching. They can all use this word transparency. So that's why I don't think there can be, there isn't a real interesting conflict between these terms. But the way I see it, we're talking about justice for people, and can our civilization be everything that it might be by having an educated population with organizations that can understand the environment that's being in full conflict. Well, the real playoff is that there should be transparency for the most powerful and privacy for the most weak, because information is power. And a lot of what is happening in this world at the moment is already extremely powerful organizations like the National Security Agency, like Google, like Facebook, like Apple, engaging in the greatest theft of wealth that the world has ever seen. The private wealth of all the individuals in the world swept up into giant databases which artificial intelligence algorithms are being put on to mine through in order to extract even more predictive power from this data set, while everyone else is in the position of being denied that. Now, the partial antidote is the common, the lack of sharing information, which is going on in the internet, sometimes intentionally, sometimes accidentally. Organizations like Wikileaks, which are designed to burrow in to these most opaque, powerful information organizations and take their wealth and that is causing an intense period of political education about how the world really works as a result of transfers down to organizations like Wikileaks. Unfortunately, there's not many of them. And a lot of that transfers, which is very significant. People simply sharing information with each other about how the world works and what they're discussing. But these are the rival wars. We must, in order to achieve a more just, humane, educated, and ultimately efficient international society prevent mega corporations becoming monopolies, global monopolies, gobbling up the world's common antivirus and using that to increase their predictive power over all other organizations and effectively their wealth in what is a new market paradigm, surveillance capitalism. Capital accumulated from spying on your users.
Mr. Assange, first of all, I would like to say thank you for all the efforts made for you in Wikileaks project for keeping the information free for everyone. I have two questions. The first is a personal one, and the second, a question from the audience. The first question is, do you really think that, or Mr. Assange, can you hear me?
I understand the question has been asked, but I can't hear a thing, so you can type the We don't hear any audio here. Only a talk.
Mr. Assange, can you hear me now?
I just heard a word.
Maybe now?
Go ahead. We can only hear the Spanish translator saying go. Perhaps you could ask the question in Spanish.
Maybe so.
Yeah, it appears that we only hear the translator's microphone, so you have to speak to that microphone.
Okay, maybe can you hear me now? Is it better?
I can hear you now.
Okay. Well, Mr. Assange, I would like to repeat a question that I made just a few seconds ago. First of all, I would like to say thank you for all your efforts for keeping the Wikileaks project alive. It's a really big effort from you, and it's a very huge way to keep the information free for everyone. We have two questions. The first is a personal question, and the second one is a question from the audience. The first question is regarding big data. Considering that all the data that is generated very up to date, maybe by social networks such as Facebook, Twitter, do you really think, considering that these servers are located, most of these servers are located in the United States, do you really think that our information is really safe? That's the first. And the second, what's the difference between transparency and privacy? Two different concepts that are commonly misunderstood. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Do I think that it's a risk having clear Facebook secrets in the United States? Well, of course. I read some books about that. One of the front, you can read it free online. Google is not what it seems. Google is not what it's very relevant what's happening with Hillary Clinton and the merger Hillary Clinton's campaign also to be also becoming the co-chairman of the Pentagon Debate Board, and there's lots of other names, guys like Gary Cohen, for example, Alec Ross, who's in a great essay on Alec Ross by Jenny Morozov called They Made Him a Moron. Very fun title. Go and read that if you want to see who's going to be in charge. But let's say that Twitter has been one of the better companies. I think we could have found but even now it is almost in a hopeless position. Twitter makes its money not just gratifying, but a large chunk of it by selling off tweets. So all the tweets clicked together and people buy. So the CIA, for example, had all the tweets sent in the world and throws that into finding out but talking about data Hong Kong being for the United States clear for a long time. 98% Latin America telecommunications, the rest of the world physically passed with I myself have had various people warrants for their accounts on Twitter, on Google. Blanket warrants sucking out thousands of emails. Prosecute me and myself. Google has done that, Facebook has done that. Twitter got quite important medals. A bit Google decided to try and fight them in court twice. But there we are talking about why they support it all. It sounds good, it sounds like they have horror. Well, that's usually if they want has evidence before. But there's bulk exception and bulk access was revealed in the Snowden documentation, but also other about before. So those can be used to very quickly map out the entire of Ecuador and the US and the country so kind of general theoretical rhetoric. The only good news is that there's a lot of stupid people involved. Quite a lot of people who don't really care much about it, would rather be playing on the golf course in Miami. And there's right, and so the result we were able to, for example, to rescue Edward Snowden from Hong Kong and managed to get some asylum, where he's been able to where he's been able to speak to the world, take the world about how is it possible that we, our team of investigative journalists, me, and support from our friends need the National Security Department, White House, the FBI, and all the US allies that were trying to get funds for Edward Snowden. How did we win that battle? Well, find out for a couple of weeks. Titanic organization of hundreds of thousands of people, really over the years, but not. Because as I said, they're not that bright, they're very bureaucratic. Fast movers, very small countries like Ecuador have an advantage in a way to the organization in some areas has a comparative advantage of speed internal. And Ecuador understanding itself better than the CIA understand Ecuador. Or even if the CIA, National Security Agency, understand all story rather than intelligence on the political atmosphere. So with all that communication occurring between individuals, the situation changes rapidly. And surveillance is only as good as its ability to create prediction of behavior, such that you have time to create a plan and resources plan in order to move first ahead of but if you've got quite a vibrant political society, like Ecuador is, then those internal political dynamics can outpace the kind of bureaucratic understanding. This is a real issue. We have upcoming February, and seeing a range of left-wing governments fall. So resource in Spanish are freed up to concentrate on that new available capacity to keep in Ecuadorian political life. Similarly, governments like the Macri government in Argentina, so bad where Macri seems to want to hand Argentina the United States plate to make sure the left is back. Especially in Miami, and part of that, I assume, will be Macri lending support, doing favors, so it can use that capacity in Spanish Ecuadorian political affairs. So there are quite some reasons where that is not slowing down. Slowing down is not engaging in cumbersome security measures, either taking things off the internet entirely, speaking away from the internet, away from the government. We're using the internet to operate at high speeds because then you can outpace quite bureaucratic. If we put it kind of in words, there's an observe, understand, and out of it, so orient, reform, understand, plan, resource, act. Once it is loose, I'll read it again, observe, understand, once it's loose, all what has already outpaced because of the external violence, food violence continuing.
Thank you, Mr. Assange. Para continuar con este congreso.
Yes, thank you very much. It was a real pleasure to be in Ecuador virtually. Perhaps one day, I understand there's going to be some of it beginning the 20th, I think. The 4 years that I was being in this league, where it was found to be illegal. Of this embassy. I think in Ecuadorians, more importantly, for their report through this really long and difficult process.